Hello friends, welcome to our Soviet Journey channel. In this video, I will tell the life story of Samantha Smith, a 10-year-old American student who took part in the relations between the United States and the Soviet Union as a peace activist. At the height of the Cold War, at a time when fears of nuclear war dominated the world, Samantha Smith visited the Soviet Union as a goodwill ambassador and peace activist. This event was closely followed by the media around the world. In November 1982, she sent a letter to the newly appointed General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, Yuri Andopov. Andropov also responded to the letter, inviting her to the Soviet Union. As a result, she visited the Soviet Union with his family between 7 and July 22, 1983. As part of the trip, he visited Moscow, Leningrad, and Arctic Pioneer in Crimea. After touring the camp, Samantha Smith was recognized as a goodwill ambassador in both countries and was even referred to as America's youngest ambassador. During this period, there was great tension in the world, and the issue of a nuclear war between the two countries was on everyone's lips. In this tense atmosphere, Samantha Smith's visit reduced everyone's anxiety. Now we will tell you the details of this visit and the life story of Little Peace Ambassador Samantha Smith. Samantha Smith was born in Holton on June 29, 1972. When she was only 5 years old, she wrote a letter to Elizabeth II to express her admiration for the British reign. Despite her young age, she was curious about the events going on in the world. When former KGB chairman Yuri Andopov became the General Secretary of the Communist Party, the fear of nuclear war gripped the Western world because Andropov generally followed a harsh policy line. Fear of war was becoming more and more pronounced, and people all over the country were starting to talk about it. This possibility of nuclear war was the main reason why Samantha Smith wrote a letter to Andropov. All the newspapers in the Western world were commenting that Andropov was a threat to the Western world. Because he was previously the Soviet ambassador to the Hungarian People's Republic during the Hungarian Uprising of 1956 and later the head of the KGB from 1967 to 1982. Later, he played an important role in the Warsaw Pact intervention in Czechoslovakia and was not very gentle towards the opposition. When Andropov, who had such a political line, came to power, naturally fear began in the Western world. The arms race was also at its peak during this period. During this period, the period of relaxation between the USA and the USSR ended. The Soviet government activated its war missiles, and subsequently the US government also deployed a large number of missiles to Western Bloc countries. In such a political atmosphere, Time magazine featured Andropov on its cover in November 1982. While reviewing this magazine, Samantha Smith asked her mother, if people are so afraid of him, why doesn't someone write him a letter asking if he wants to fight? Her mother replied, why not? And that's how Samantha Smith's letter to Andropov came to light. To understand why relations between the United States and the Soviet Union were bad and tense, she wrote the following letter to Andropov. Dear Andropov, my name is Samantha Smith. I'm 10 years old. Congratulations on your new position. I'm worried about Russia and the USA getting into a nuclear war. Will you vote to fight? If you are not going to vote for this, please tell how you can help prevent war. You do not have to answer this question, but if you want, I would like to know. Why do you want to take over the world, or at least our country? God created the world for us to live in peace and care for, not for war or for one group of people to have it all. Please, let's do God's will and everyone be happy. Samantha Smith, please reply. The letter was sent to Andropov in November 1982, and parts of it were published in the Pravda newspaper in early 1983. But Smith had not yet received a response to the letter. She later sent another letter to the US Embassy in the Soviet Union asking if Andropov would like to respond. On April 26, 1983, a signed response came from Andropov, written in Russian on colored paper and translated into English. The text was as follows: Dear Samantha, I received your letter, which is like many others that have reached me recently from your country and from other countries around the world. It seems to me that you are a brave and honest girl, just like your fellow countryman Mark Twain's friend Becky in his famous book. This book is well known and loved in our country by all boys and girls. You write that you are anxious about whether there will be a nuclear war between our two countries. And you ask, are we doing anything so that war will not break out? Your question is the most important of those that every thinking man can pose. I will reply to you seriously and honestly. Yes, Samantha, we in the Soviet Union are trying to do everything so that there will not be war on Earth. This is what every Soviet man wants. This is what the great founder of our state, Vladimir Lenin, taught us. Soviet people well know what a terrible thing war is. 42 years ago, Nazi Germany, which strove for supremacy over the whole world, attacked our country, burned and destroyed many thousands of our towns and villages, killed millions of Soviet men, women, and children. In that war, which ended with our victory, we were in alliance with the United States. Together we fought for the liberation of many people from the Nazi invaders. I hope that you know about this from your history lessons in school. And today we want very much to live in peace, to trade and cooperate with all our neighbours on this earth, with those far away and those nearby, and certainly with a big country like the USSR. There are terrifying nuclear weapons in America and in our country that could kill millions of people instantly. But we don't want them to be ever used. That's precisely why the Soviet Union solemnly declared throughout the entire world that never and never will it use nuclear weapons first against any country. We propose to discontinue further production of them and to proceed to the abolition of all the stockpiles on Earth. It seems to me that this is a sufficient answer to your second question. Why do you want to wage war against the whole world, or at least the United States? We want nothing of the kind. No one in our country, neither workers, peasants, writers nor doctors, neither grown-ups nor children, nor members of the government want either a big or little war. We want peace. There is something that we are occupied with: growing wheat, building and inventing, writing books and flying into space. We want peace for ourselves and for all peoples of the planet, for our children and for you, Samantha. I invite you, if your parents will let you, to come to our country, the best time being this summer. You will find out about our country, meet with your contemporaries, visit an international children's Arctic camp on the sea, and see for yourself, in the Soviet Union, everyone is for peace and friendship among peoples. Thank you for your letter. I wish you all the best in your young life. Yuri Andopov. Following Andropov's invitation, Samantha Smith flew to Moscow with her family on July 7, 1983. Many people welcomed them at the airport. The family stayed at the Sovetskaya Hotel, and Samantha Smith spent 2 weeks in the country as a guest of Andropov. During these visits, she saw the Kremlin, laid flowers at Yuri Gagarin's grave, saw the Supreme Soviet of the Soviet Union building, visited the monument to the unknown soldier and the Lenin Mausoleum. She also examined the apartment where Lenin spent his last years, his study, bedroom, books and manuscripts, which were preserved. Samantha Smith later explained this event as follows: I would say that Vladimir Lenin was an important person to the Soviet people, similar to what George Washington was to Americans. In her later book, Journey of the Soviet Union, she stated that she and her family were amazed by the friendliness of the people in Leningrad and the gifts they were given. She said at a press conference in Moscow that the Soviet people were just like them. Later, it was prepared for the reception to be held at the Arctic camp. The room where she would stay had been arranged. She was given 2 options for accommodation, with her family in an adults-only hotel or with the girls in the camp. Samantha Smith chose to stay with the Soviet children rather than accept the privileged accommodation conditions and replied with the girls. Samantha stayed in the camp with 9 other girls. Here she spent her time swimming, speaking, dancing, and learning Soviet songs. She used the following expressions about the time she spent in the camp. Kids often asked me about America, especially how we dressed and what kind of music we liked. Everyone asked me how I was living and wanted to know what we talked about in the evenings, about war and peace. But these seemed unnecessary because in America everyone was good, and of course they did not want any war. After visiting Arctic camp, Samantha Smith went to Leningrad. Here she learned about what happened during the siege of Leningrad, studied those who died in the siege, and read Tanya Savachev's diary. She then toured many buildings and areas. After returning to Moscow, he met with Soviet cosmonaut Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman in space. Samantha Smith had previously received a call from Tereshkova, but accidentally hung up after a brief conversation because she didn't realize who she was talking to. When she met with Tereshkova, this issue was discussed in a humorous manner. Andropov was unable to meet Samantha during her visit, but they were able to talk on the phone. It was later reported that Andropov was seriously ill during this period and remained out of sight. The press in the USA, the Soviet Union, and many other countries around the world carefully followed her every move and the sentences she uttered. Her photographs and articles written about her were published in Soviet newspapers and magazines during and after her trip. Samantha was initially bothered by the journalists' attention, but she understood that it was their job and did not complain again in the future. Samantha Smith was widely known to the Soviet public at the time, and her visit was received positively by most. In the United States, the incident aroused suspicion, with some writers describing it negatively as an American-style public relations stunt. She was criticized in some letters sent to her for being used by Soviet propaganda. Samantha stated that her mission was peace and friendship among children and said, "I was used, but if this is propaganda, it is only peace propaganda." In response to criticism that she did not show real life in the Soviet Union, she said, "When I had guests over, I would not show them a closet full of garbage and dust." Samantha Smith was a really smart girl. Samantha Smith returned to the United States on July 22, 1983. When she arrived, she was greeted with a red carpet, roses, and a limousine, and her popularity in her home country soared. Later, in December 1983, she was invited to Japan, continuing her duty as America's youngest ambassador. Here, she met with Prime Minister Yasuhiro Nakasone and attended the International Children's Symposium. In her speech at the symposium, she said that a head of state would not want to send a bomb to a country that her grandchild would visit, and that Soviet and American leaders should send their grandchildren to visit the countries for 2 weeks each year. Samantha's trip inspired many other child goodwill ambassadors. She communicated with children in many countries around the world, including children in the Soviet Union. In one of her last letters, she wrote the following: "I met some very interesting and kind people who made me look at the world from a new perspective. I was truly happy and will never forget the warmth of the letters I received from children all over the world. Sometimes reading the letters seems even more fascinating than the journey itself, but there are so many and I can't answer them all. I apologize for that and thank you for all your wonderful letters, which are very much appreciated. In my opinion, the people of our countries should come together for sports, science and art. I believe that then there will always be peace. May there always be sunshine. May the sky always be clear." Unfortunately, Samantha Smith's young life ended early. On August 25, 1985, Samantha Smith and her father were returning home on Bar Harbor Airlines Flight 1808. While the plane was trying to land at the airport, it hit trees approximately 1,200 meters from the runway and fell to pieces. There have been many speculations about the cause of the accident, from which there were no survivors. Although it was stated that the plane crashed due to bad weather conditions, accusations that the accident was a murder were widely discussed in the Soviet Union because it occurred in the summer. Investigations into the accident were conducted in the United States, and the official report made public stated that there was no evidence to suggest that the incident was murder. Around 1,000 people, including senior government officials, attended Samantha Smith's funeral. On the same day, she was highly praised in Moscow as a champion of peace. Among those attending the funeral, a personal condolence message from the new General Secretary of the Communist Party, Mikhail Gorbachev, was also read. Like millions of Soviet young men and women in the Soviet Union, all who knew Samantha Smith will always remember the image of the American girl as a symbol of peace and friendship between the peoples of the United States and the Soviet Union. As President Ronald Reagan also sent a written message of condolence to Smith's family. Perhaps you can take some comfort in the knowledge that millions of Americans, even millions of others, share her pain. They will also remember Samantha, her smile, her idealism, and the natural sweetness of her spirit. Yes, friends, I tried to tell you the life story of Samantha Smith. I hope you liked it. Samantha Smith, who received the title of a world-renowned peace ambassador at a young age, unfortunately passed away at an early age, but continues to be recognized all over the world. There are many similar videos on our Soviet Journey channel. Please do not forget to follow and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye for now. Stay in solidarity.